a preacher decides to physically assault an elderly woman in his church. Police get involved, local news gets involved, and we have the video. Here it is. Okay, so the video doesn't have sound. You're looking at the pastor and an elderly woman. And yes, that is a shove, a push, a physical assault. Put it in full mask. I will explain what happened. So this pastor is caught shoving an elderly woman downstairs. The footage you watched is of Pastor Lorenz Roseman of Beulah Missionary Baptist Church, who is now facing criminal charges, shoving a female church elder out of a gate and down the short flight of steps last fall outside the house of worship. Elsie McTall, the injured party, said she fractured one of her wrists and some toes in the fall. Very painful. Quote, "I'm not the same after being hurt by somebody that you trust and love," she told KTLA. Now, this is in California. Put the pastor back up again. I'm going to read the quote from the woman he injured one more time and keep the pastor up. She says, "I'm not the same after being hurt by somebody that you trust and love." Understand, she de-emphasized her physical issue and emphasized the emotional state of her spiritual connection and love for her pastor who did this to her. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, they told Law and Crime that Pastor Roseman was arrested October 2025 for allegedly shoving McTall down a flight of cement steps outside the house of worship located in the city of Gardena. This is in Los Angeles County, South Bay area. He was released 2 days later on a promise to appear in court, promissory bond, basically, signature bond. Roseman was charged with assault by means of force, likely to produce great bodily injury. That's actually a felony, okay? And released on his own recognizance, according to the DA's office and a criminal complaint obtained by Law and Crime. The alleged offense, quote, involved great violence, great bodily harm, threat of great bodily harm, and other acts disclosing a high degree of cruelty, viciousness, and callousness, the complaint says. This has to do with his actions and his words. The pastor pleaded not guilty and doesn't seem to be stepping down after committing what's alleged as a physical assault felony at the church. In a statement to KTLA, Pastor Roseman said the fate of his position was decided by a business meeting where a majority of congregants in attendance voted to keep him on as head pastor. The man physically assaulted a member of the church, an elderly woman. Come on now. And I'm not moralizing against the brother. But I can't sit in this chair and say clearly a cop who would have done the same thing that person doesn't need to be a cop anymore. I can't say that and then give the pastor who physically assaults an elderly woman at his church a pass. He gets no pass. He should be held to a higher standard of accountability. I'm not saying he needs to be punished for life. So it's a life lesson, not a life sentence. But it doesn't mean he deserves to be there in that capacity. No more than the cop who has a position of public trust, if they're going to violate people who they are there to serve, they don't deserve to have that position either. In a statement. So in a statement attempted to justify his assault. I want you to hear this now. The whole unfortunate event began when I was informed that certain influential members who held positions of power might be engaged in unethical or illegal activities. After conducting an investigation and confirming the allegations, I removed them from their position. When these individuals could not oust me through our church policies and procedures, they began to attack my character and weaponize the legal system against me. However, judges have dismissed these suits as frivolous and lacking standing. Signed, Pastor Lorenz, Roseman. Sir, you sound like Donald Trump, sir. That's no compliment. That's actually one of the worst insults I could give you. No responsibility, no accountability. What the hell are you going to preach about on Sunday? Najee Aliya, community activist, posted the footage and said, quote, following his arrest for assault, he continues to preach from the pulpit every Sunday. Ali said some church members want him gone and question why he's still preaching while criminal charges against him proceed. He does not get to put his hands on anyone, said churchgoer Dr. Tanisha Thames. Quote, that is not okay. He has to go. Right. Yasmin, I'm gonna let you take this. What say you?
Yeah, I don't go to church or to the mosque or whatever, just for context, want to throw that out there. But I do understand, I don't understand how this man still has a job. Like, why is it up to him to step down? Why does he still have a congregation to preach to every Sunday? Who is going there listening to him, trying to get any kind of wisdom from somebody who is in the middle of a criminal investigation and who has done something terrible on camera to one of the members of their church? That's insane. I can't imagine attending that church, seeing him there and listening to anything that he has to say. And I'm not trying to pass the blame or the burden onto the churchgoers. I know that a big part of going to church is about community and, not all you're not always going to be happy with the pastor, but these people, they seem to they back them up, and that is interesting behavior to me as a non-church goer. But then the pastor, after he was allowed to stay, he removed people from positions of power who he perceived to be against him. And you said he sounded like Donald Trump when he did that, and that is exactly right. This is just a church. It's not an entire country, but he's still a leader within his community. But what we're seeing is a consolidation of power, and it is still heinous, even on a much lower level than what we're seeing in Washington right now. And the people who are still following this pastor, this preacher, listening to him every Sunday, deciding that they want to get their wisdom from this man who is clearly not a good person. I don't have words for that. I don't have an explanation for that. I can't imagine it. Go to find a different church, or at least boycott until he leaves. Something like, they have power, and in something that is just a church, not a country, I think you can wield that power a little bit more acutely and forcefully than the American people can protesting the president.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they have deep trust, respect, and love for their pastor. Listen, Black folk have been going to church a long time. I'm Black and I know. Every man and woman is fallible. I don't care who you are. So imperfections are there. But there's a certain mastery of discipline we expect individuals to have at a certain stage of their spiritual development. And if you have been given the great calling and ordination of pastor of a church, and you can't figure out how to not push an elderly member downstairs because you are upset at their procedural maneuvering, so that's a disappointment. And it's also illegal.